Hey, this is Seagrove, and today I'm here with Russell LaParre, Joe Bernard, and Chip Richey of Varying Things. So I picked these guys because we were talking about evaluating cards from new sets, and they are pretty good at that, and they do that somewhat almost for a living. Almost. So let's just go ahead and introduce. You can each introduce yourselves. So Russell, why don't you go ahead?
I'm Russell LaParre. I've been playing for 4.5, 5 seasons now. I run Someone's PC. It's a team article website. Used to be a YouTube channel, and then we all got lazy. And yeah, I'm usually known for like building really roguish, crazy stuff, and then finishing like top 32 and top 16 with it. And then I went try hard one tournament and I finished top 8, and that was pretty fun. So I'm debating if I want to just keep going try hard. So
nice, feels good. Joe, go ahead.
Yep, I'm Joe Bernard. Play from the UK. I'm 500 CP right now. Have been since February. Dislocated my knee, so I missed Latin America, which sucks.
Solid.
And I run the YouTube channel OmniPoke alongside Jack.
Chip.
Yeah, my name is Chip Richey. I have been playing for, this is like my second full season, so, just over 2 years, I think, at this point. You might know me from my YouTube channel where I post like videos about Pokemon trading card game, and I also write articles on Someone's PC, so all that stuff. There you go.
You got Someone's PC, dude.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to wear my shirt, Russell.
You're fine. You're fine. I'll allow it this time.
So, all of you guys I've seen do or at least be involved in set reviews, looking at the different cards and such. When you go into a set review, what are you looking for in terms of giving a card a good grade or a good review? What things either stick out to you, or do you have specific things you're looking for?
Energy acceleration with very little cost and very little drawback.
Like, what you mean for the energy acceleration or in general?
Oh yeah, like, so when a new set drops, I pretty much look at every GX card and I go, that's good, that sucks, that sucks, that sucks, that sucks. That's pretty much every set so far. It's like, that's garbage, that's not bad. And then like you go like, that's good, that's good. What you kind of do is like go through all the GXs and then pick out the one that's obviously good. Because for some reason we've had a bunch of garbage next to like two homies. Like Gardevoir, Buzzwole drop. People thought Buzzwole was garbage. I was like the only one like really like raving it up. And then my home was like, I like Buzzwole too. I was like, yeah, boy, let's go. And then right now I'm like, I hate Buzzwole. He needs to go. He needs to leave. And yeah, the thing you usually do is take the current top decks, evaluate what they do, and then look at all the GXs, evaluate what they can potentially do, and then if one of those GXs can compete amongst the rest of them, they're blatantly like kind of the deck to build, either based on typing or based on like their damage output. Some decks just don't care, like Dustmane Necrozma, right? And it's like, that hits so hard. And it's like, yeah, what kind of support does it have? Then you look through the trainers, and then you look through like the other Pokemon, the supportive one, the bench sitters, Magnezone and other stuff like that. And overall, that's like, those will breed the new decks, at least in my opinion, the new Pokemon. And then the trainers and supporters is like how everyone's going to elevate the skeleton of their deck list overall, right? So that's why you get a lot of questions like, when this set drops, what do you think about this supporter or this one or this one? And I'm like, it's not bad. Is it better than Sycamore? Like, oh no, moving on. It's like, Cynthia's coming out. What do you think about it? Love it. All right, throwing that in. It's like, it has to be able to compete with our current, right, or provide such a like obscure route to like deck building that it would become its own thing. And yeah, then the thing to test about that is just consistency. So I've been talking a lot. I don't want to talk too much.
All right, so you guys, the other two, what sticks out to you, or what do you look for?
One of the first things I do is I kind of just try to analyze cards in a vacuum, just as cards themselves, not considering the meta and considering popular decks, because you want to be able to recognize cards that are just inherently good or have inherent uses. So you look at Buzzwole GX, for example. You know, it's got one attack that spreads damage. That's nice. Can set up numbers later on.
Right.
It's got one attack that can take a big knockout for you. So seems like a good card. Something like Zoroark GX, you look at it. It's got a consistency ability as far as trading. High HP number.
You can look at that card and be like, "What? What
there's
are
a lot.
they doing?"
So yeah, I just like try to look at things like in a vacuum of like, is this card inherently strong, or is it, you know, inherently not as good? Something like Guzzlord GX maybe is kind of a sillier card that's you know, super high energy cost. It's got a lot of HP for a basic Pokemon, but just the energy requirements don't like let something like that work. And then from there you can kind of expand it out to what the rest of the like field is going to look like for like what popular decks from past sets, things like that, and how you can, with like trainers and stuff, how you can fit new trainers into old archetypes. And every set also, like, there's like an obvious archetype to come out. Like this last Ultra Prism set, we had Duskmane Necrozma Magnezone is like supposed to be this obviously powerful combo, and like in a vacuum it is really powerful, and we've seen decks that function very similarly be best decks in formats of the past, like Blastoise in like 2013. It's literally like a copy paste of that. And then now in this next set, the obvious combo is the Ultra Necrozma with Malamar, which is literally like a copy and paste of Rayquaza EX Electric from, you know, 2012 time period. 2000, is that older than that? Yeah, 2012, something like that. I don't know. That's before I played, but
same.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's like, and another thing you can do is also since there's so many cards nowadays that have similar attributes of like past decks that have been really powerful, you can kind of analyze like how those decks performed well in those specific metas, like what were the other things that were performing well at the time, and how you know, does that compare to what we have nowadays? So,
Joe, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, it's all much a muchness, really. They've really covered it. The good cards are good, and then it's trying to figure out how they can work, how realistic it is that they can work. That's always sort of underappreciated. I think trying to make the list work, not just like this card has to be good because it does this amount of damage or has this much hit points. It's how many times you can do it out of 10 or out of 100 or out of 1,000. So you've got to really take care of getting the job working first. And when it works, then you say, okay, can I beat this, this, this? How much do I have to water down this list to beat this, this, and this, or to compete against them? These are all factors, and that's why you normally see like basic decks or stage 1 decks right now, just because of Zoroark, really, because you have the space to like adapt the list enough to answer the current metagame. So that's kind of why we see the more consistent decks overall come out on top. But I mean, people just play stage 2 stuff as well, just because they hit hard enough or do whatever enough to see play. So there's lots of different answers, really.
And I guess to piggyback on my portion too, you kind of want to look at a card and it needs to break the game. Like, it needs to be very unfair with its ability or its attack of like the current game state, right? So if you look at a card and like even Duskmane Necrozma to a certain extent is so balanced.
It's too fair.
It's like, oh look, it has a great GX attack. Oh, it has to discard 3 energy. Once you have Magnezone, which breaks the rule of you can only attach 1 energy per turn, then it looks scary, right? Or like Beastring or Max Elixir. The cards that really break the current, like let you operate outside the set rules of the game are what's really, really busted. And are blatantly like the ones that are attractive to people. And sadly, they're usually on like the standard legendaries or stupid Pokemon that we don't really care about, right? But then you'll get the ones that like people try hard love.
Yeah.
Like the most recent set, we got Greninja GX, and they're like, "Yo, what do you think? What do you think?" And I'm like, "I'm not sure 50 damage is gonna do a lot when they got like a 240 HP GX or something out there." So that's like, it's very value driven. So like, oh, if I'm playing a stage 2, it better do something where like when it's out, I look at my opponent like, "Why are you still here? I got turn 2." Like Hurricane with like whatever it is, right?
Right. So these cards come out. We think they're good. Some people think they're good. Some people don't. Whatever. You put together. How do you go about actually deciding? Obviously, the answer is testing, but how do you go about testing new cards?
You just grind a ton of games with it. You basically, like, you answered it right on the dot. You just like have to test a lot of games with it, and sometimes you'll pick up one version of a deck, and starting testing with Ultra Necrozma, I'll probably start with Ultra Necrozma Malamar, the obvious combo out of the set. We'll go from there. If I like that version of the deck, we'll keep trying to refine a list. If I don't like it, I might go for like a more refined like B-string Zolwark version, just speed through your deck and get B-strings into play as fast as you can after they take a prize. So there's just like different, you just have to like, don't limit yourself to just, this is the obvious combo, this is what I have to stick with. You can try other things out. Like I know Duskmane Necrozma is not a deck that's seen like a ton of success in major tournaments. I think there was a decent amount of it at Latin America Internationals, but I know initially everyone's Duskmane Necrozma Magnezone, but then, we had some talks of like, okay, there's this Duskmane Necrozma Garbodor deck. There's this Elixirs deck with max potions that I've seen people playing as well. So don't just limit yourself to like the obvious combos. Like find other ways to make cards work too.
Right. So let me ask a more pointed question on that. Do you test against the current standard or whatever format, or the upcoming, or are you doing hands by yourself?
So I'll kind of give like a nicer response to it. I don't have all the time in the world to test every idea I ever want to test.
Right.
Especially the way I think and how much rogue stuff I want to play based on how cute the Pokemon is, or like what it does, or like how roguish we can get with the idea, right? A lot of times I just theorize a lot of matchups, probably hours on end. So like I'll be at work and I was like, I got like 5 minutes of downtime. What can I do about this particular deck? Like right now let's think about like Greninja, right? So it's like Greninja, it evolves into like this huge GX, 230, and it does like the Golbat Crobat damage. What damage, like what back then made Crobat so good? Oh, there was like Landy Bats and there was like Toad Bats. And can that keep up with the current meta based upon the damage output that we have? What it currently does. If the response to that is yes, right now it's no. And if the response is yes, then it's like I'll sit back and just think what a typical hand and a turn-by-turn play out this deck would have, and if I hit my like ideal scenario. So I was like, if I turn one for like triple Froakie, and I'm playing with Galissapod because I want like to go swing
so
and then
greedy.
Greninja and then do this and do that, right? What are the odds of me losing to like a Buzzwole? Or to like a Zoroark, or to a turn, or like a turn 2, I got everything I wanted, then they end me down low. Do I now have to play Octillery in my deck and stuff like that? So it's pretty much like you can theoremon a high portion of it, and if you're like sitting there bouncing idea with like a close friend or like another good player, and the theory gets to a point where you're like, oh, that actually might happen, then you actually test the matchup.
Uh-huh.
Because like we don't have all the time in the world, especially with 2 formats, to try and grind out like all these type of decks that I want to try.
Right.
And so a lot of it comes down to, oh, here's this theory. Oh, this beats this, right? And they're like, no, they're just gonna go turn 2 mute. Like, what if I just mute your Buzzwole and then do this and do that? And you're like, oh, yeah, that sucks. So like after you mute my Buzzwole, then I promote a like Greninja or like a or like a Frogadier. Like, how am I supposed to win with this? Different ideas like that. And if it gets to the point where I feel like the idea could hold value against the current meta and my expected meta, because I'll be thinking about this with another deck, then I'll actually test it. And stuff that's like stage 2, Magnezone, Energy, like Whiteboard, it's just kind of, is it consistent enough to keep up with the current best decks in the format? And if the answer is yes, then start grinding out a good list.
Yeah, I definitely think it's better to test against stuff that you know is good than just face new deck versus new deck, because either of those lists could not be perfect, and that can skew either result.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to beat the good decks first. So if you're testing the new deck, you've got to test against, even if you're tweaking the new stuff, because they normally gain toys here and there. You want to be relatively close to the mark to what you know is good, because you know that something's not good if you can't beat the stuff that's good, right? So you have to, I mean, typically before I start sitting down grinding games, you want to build a list. a lot of the time that can be the first hurdle. If you can't make a list that you think looks good straight off the bat, you're like, well, it probably won't work. So you got to make a good 60. Then you look at the vast scope of decks, sort of try and give yourself like a close matchup against most things. Obviously, some decks just naturally sack other matchups, and that's fine. Like that's always been the case here and there, but you have to sort of time it well, and it becomes more of a metical deck than like a top tier archetype. And then you start grinding games against the good stuff, and potentially then you start finding new stuff. But I mean, that'll naturally come just on like PCGO ladder. I wouldn't go searching for like other new decks anytime soon. You just want to face the good stuff first.
Sure. So let's go around, and I want you to talk about one card from this upcoming set that interests you, or one concept or one deck that interests you, why it interests you, and either how you have been testing it or how you plan to approach testing it, creating it, whatever it is that you're going to be doing. Chip, can you feel like you're ready to start this?
Start with someone else.
Okay. Who's got this?
I'll take the easy one.
No, go ahead. I won't do an easy one. Go ahead.
I'll take Malamar.
Yeah,
great.
Malamar's
That was
really good.
I wanted to look at it real fast and try to pick something that wasn't obvious. But yeah.
Malamar's a
really
good way to start.
So I think that's pretty much the most anticipated card from the set because we've seen it previously, and Bronzong was successful in a field of 3 item lock decks, and Eels was successful when Landorus was around, and you had 30 HP Dynamos. So when there aren't those obstacles in the way, this sort of acceleration is the best in the game. And we're spoon-fed some pretty good attackers. We gained the Ultra Necrozma. I think a lot of people are looking straight at that card and saying that's the best one. I don't necessarily think it is. I like the old Necrozma and just playing like heavy Mew and just be non-EX GXy. Just try and glass cannon people, because glass cannoning is inherently insane. Like 2-for-1ing is how you win this game a lot of the time, or getting favorable trades is how you win. So because we have such good cards like Mew to glass cannon in the format, it just naturally tends towards Malamar. And we also get the mysterious treasure card, so the list is going to be fluid and smooth. You have so much search to find Lele to get you into the supporters you want, let alone the Malamars themselves. So you'll be similar to Rails when they had 4 Ultra Ball, 4 Level Ball at the time. The list looks the same, but you can play pure 1 energy, so you don't have the headache of missing stuff, which is good, because you won't have things like Guru or Octillery most likely because of bench space more than anything else, and people will play Parallel. So I think the main issues for Malamar is like Greninja, turning off your abilities, Parallel. Everyone's saying that Parallel beats this deck. I don't think it straight up does, but it's definitely a hiccup.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a hiccup. You want to play your own Parallel City, so they don't do it to you.
Yeah, I know that some Japanese lists like taking their own Parallel just to get it down, and for mirrors and stuff, which is fine. Yeah. But I mean, I'm always of the approach. Like, if I'm building an early list, I'm going to make it as baseline and simple as possible. See how many times it works, and then I squeeze in my techs and see how much it makes the deck worse, and sometimes it makes it better. So, yeah, that's pretty much Malamar in a nutshell. Acceleration is busted. We've seen it in the past be this insane against like a more like annoying field for it, really, because you can't set up your stuff if you're under item lock. And Landorus, although we have Buzzwole, which is pretty much the same card in the early turns, you don't care because you're a psychic deck, so that's absolutely fine. So I think if it's survived a harsher environment, it's got to do well in the new standard format.
Did you reference any lists like Ray Eels when you were building it?
Sort of. I mean, I just remember it. I mean, I was in the Ray Eels era, so I just know what the list looked like. And I mean, we have some similar stuff like Skyra Bridge for movement. We had Keldeo Floatstone, which is now Dawnwings Floatstone. We have the 8 ball search cards that was played back then. You just play a 4/4 line and the big attacker. It's the same deck. Like, they've completely spoon-fed it to us. It's not hard to replicate it, to be honest, if you have to look back.
And to piggyback on that, Dragon Treasures or Mysterious Treasures is disgusting. Like,
so good.
that
Ultra
card
Ball
is
for
insane.
one.
It's actually
Or-
insane.
Yeah.
All right, who's got next?
Something that's really slept on, which I love that it's slept on, because everyone else is on a Malamar train or like a Buzzwole Beast Ring train. Garchomp fighting is so fun. I actually played at one of my cups, and my first round I dead drew, and then the other round I lost to Zoropod. I think I missed like one of 3 choice span in my deck for 4 turns to try and like take the lead against the Galissapod to go for a Cynthia into a 230. It was very frustrating to deal with. And I feel like that's definitely a deck that gets like next level strong off of having the fighting Garchomp instead of having the Dragon one there, especially with Galissapod taking a backseat next format, which I anticipate it's going to do. At least right now, because it was dependent on Zoroark before, and you can't do that in my eyes going into like the future with Beast Ring, at least against Malamar. Or Malamar and Buzzwole Beast Ring, right? So I'm working on a few Garchomp lists, and since you have the fighting Gibble now, you can Brooklet Hill out Gibble. And
You
hit the
already had
consistency
fighting Gibble.
soon. No, but like it was.
You have
it
a
was
good
much
fighting
different.
Gilbert.
Yeah, you have a good fighting Gibble. That like Essentials, right? And you also have Diancie Prism, which you can use to make cuter numbers with the other Garchomp. And now you can Strong Energy old Garchomp and not have awkward interactions between that and the past one. And since that deck is like relatively known and kind of like dragged out a little bit, the other deck I was working on outside of the top 2 meta ones, Buzzwole and Ultra Necrozma, was Zygarde GX. And people are like, oh, I don't know how to build this and like how to accelerate. I was talking to a couple guys online, and they're like, oh, I'm trying this Scorched Earth, discard a lot of energy, go for a Cell Connector early, kind of play. And then they're like, no, I'll just keep looping my GX attack. And then I realized that Buzzwole can go Guzma Lycanroc against you and kill your Zygarde with the Peace String. So that doesn't sound fun at all. But that's just like another idea it has. Like the Verdict GX to protect itself with the band, and then using Bonnie, and then doing it over and over again is just my, hey, that seems kind of busted. Like what can we do with that kind of idea? Mm-hmm. And again, Grass is going to take a backseat. At least my current expectations it does.
Okay. Chip, what you got?
Yeah. So I also think like Zygarde GX is pretty interesting. Like Russell was talking about earlier in the video, anytime you have a combo that like breaks a rule of the game, it's definitely worth looking at. And you know what, Zygarde plus Bonnie lets you break the rule of the game of only using 1 GX attack, and 150 damage with the GX attack like is decent, but then you consider things like, okay, we've got the Ansi Prism Star in this set, it's going to let you boost some damage. You have things like you could use Choice Bands, you could use Strong Energy, even Fighting Fury Belts, depending on like the math and the numbers you're trying to hit. And then with a super EX and GX reliant formats, or well, not EX so much, but GX reliant format, they can't damage your guy, and that seems pretty strong at first glance, but it also has that barrier of 4 energy requirements. It's a basic Pokemon though, so you have things like Max Elixir you can use, so you got to like consider all those things. But then another card that no one has mentioned yet that I do actually like in this next set is Alolan Executor with the energy. It's like Super Energy Bomb or something like that. That's some other attack. Tropical Shake. There we go. 20 damage plus 20 more for each basic energy type in your discard pile, up to 5 types. So you can hit 120 with it, but it's 160 HP stage 1 Pokemon. So it's pretty big. They're going to have to commit a lot to take a knockout on it. And you're going to be trading 2-hit KOs for 1 energy. So, something that's hitting 120, 1 energy seems like it could be decent, higher HP number. So I think that's a card that a lot of people are passing up right now that does actually have some potential as well.
And we still have Smeargle.
We do have Smeargle.
Awesome.
That is true.
Sounds like you guys are all sleeping on the fighting Chimchar, so I'm just kidding. All right, last question. I don't even know what it is. I distracted myself from my dumb comment. Let's see. Oh, yeah. So, why is it this last question. Why is it that maybe every other set, I would say, a huge portion of the community, including very good players, think something is going to be awesome or bad, and it isn't? Why is it that
You have to give specifics.
Okay, so
Because to say like
okay.
something's gonna be bad,
This is my favorite.
I swear it's gonna be good.
This is my favorite. Leafeon. So I saw Leafeon. I was like, wow, that card is absolute trash. And then everyone was like, so good, so good, so good, so good. So I built it and I tested it. I played about 10 hands with it. I was like, okay, this is absolutely trash. You have to start it and a grass energy and a Bridget and go second. Or start it, or start a Bridget and a Floatstone and a grass energy and go second for it to be actually like excellent. Because otherwise you can evolve and then who cares if you're GX. But that was widely believed to be a very good card, and it wasn't a very good card. Why does that happen? And that's like the one time I'm right. I'm usually in the group that thinks something is awesome and it's awful. But why is it that happens? Why do we all think this card's going to be great?
Well, I think specifically for Leafeon, like, people were only ever partnering it with Decidueye, and the list was like pretty clunky because to maximize the Leafeon, you have to play a bunch of grass energy. So the list itself doesn't look great. So some people look at the card, think of the best case scenario. Cool, I can get 3 Rowlets into Dartrixes. That's great. Then I could be picking all over the board, and then it's the people who then start looking at lists. Then it's people who eventually play lists. So when a card comes out, you just see the stuff that could happen, the combos, the synergies, and then people think that synergy is great. That could be very good. And then over time, you know, we don't even have these cards on. We can't test these cards until they're in our hands, right? So we can only see what's there. And in the specific case of Leafeon, it's because you're not hitting 120 turn 2 with a Zoroark. That's like, you could be doing that instead of evolving Leafeon. So, like, just play Zoroark.
That would be pretty much my logic. It's just, we're all hoping things would be different to the Zoroark era, and it just can't keep up. So I think that's actually like just human interaction of hoping, you know? Like, oh, if all this happens, you can definitely beat Zoroark, right? And it's like, no, you can't. It's not going to happen. Or even if it does, you get like, oh, they turned 2 150'd me, and I healed 70 or like 60 of it off, whatever Leafeon, maybe 50. It hit a certain amount, and you're like, and then you can just float stone away and then do something else, but it's not good enough to keep up with the current. That's why when I talked about earlier, like, you have to evaluate the now and theorize, can it keep up? Can any new card keep up with the now? And people were thinking, yes, it can. And then after testing and after like grinding out, the answer was no, it can't. So that's why things turn out like.
Because Leafeon would be successful in a different format. It's a powerful card.
Yeah. It's not a garbage card by any means, but it's just, it's not better than Zoroark. Like, why would you want ex-basketball player when you can get LeBron? Oh, okay, cool. Like, it's pretty much the same logic. It's everyone has access to the same pool, and it's when you're knowingly taking a lesser deck and trying to make it better without like backing up evidence outside of theory. And usually in the theory, you need the perfect scenario to come down. And there's a reason why that other deck is the best deck, is because it does it consistently. And Zoroark is just plain dumb because it's the attacker and it's the engine. And that's what a lot of the other decks are missing.
Yeah. And especially because Leafeon has basically the same stats as Zoroark, same hit points, trying to 2-hit KO. It's trying to do the exact same thing, so it's just worse than this other card.
I think it's less.
It doesn't draw me 2 cards and gets me.
Yeah.
Like
and it needs 1 more energy to attack. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, that's it. Unless you guys have anything you want to add, and we can hop into shout outs or plugs or whatever it is. Joe, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, so you can find me misplaying on stream Mondays and Wednesdays at Team Omnipoke. Omnipoke on the YouTube as well. And shout out CCG as well.
Russ.
Ultra Necrozma and Buzzwole are literally as strong as they seem. This isn't one of those deceiving plays. This is one of the Gardevoir things. So like when we got Worlds and Gardevoir dropped and Gardevoir ended up winning the whole thing. I feel like it's one of those sets where it's going to change the meta. It's going to shake things up. Beast Ring is going to be played, adapted to, teched against, then still played. And I definitely think there's going to be a set bar of like 3 or 4 decks that are just going to be miles ahead behind the next one. And you just kind of drop down from there. And Greninja, people are still going to try and play it because of Shadow Stitch, like against Malamar and stuff. I hope that all fails. And I hope it fails horribly.
I recorded that today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some old decks will come back. A lot of cute ideas will come up. If you're fishing for points and you're going to Roanoke and you're going to Toronto, and there's my dog, and if you're going to like really try hard for points, you should literally just be playing these meta decks and taking up those free like top 64s, top 128s you want to get, instead of trying to like reinvent the wheel when they've given us something so strong in Beast Ring. At the same time, you can find me at someone'spc.com. And awesome. shout out to my sponsors as well as Seagrubs, which is flipsidegaming.com. This format sucks. I've never been more bored with the current Pokemon, so I'm hoping next set really shakes it up, which I think it will. I'm excited for that. And yeah, that should be all.
Yeah, you guys can check out my YouTube channel, Trainer Chip. Post Pokemon TCG like deck profiles and stuff. I'll be having a lot of stuff out for the new set, hopefully. So be sure to check that out. You can also follow me on Twitter at Trainer Chip, and I also stream once every like month or so. So you can check that out on Twitch. I'm gonna try to get into a better streaming schedule because I do want to stream, but it's has been hard to find a time that I can make it work. But hopefully soon.
All right, awesome. Thank you guys.
And also, I write articles on someone'spc.com, so I gotta remember to. With Russell here, I gotta definitely remember to say that.
If you're going to Utah, please play Zoroark Eggs or something that beats Zoroark Eggs. That's it. There's no in between. Just very dynamic.
All right, cool. Thank you guys again.